We've got our top 5 90s animes. Coming in at number 5, we have Berserk. Berserk talks about a young man in Guts finding his way in the world and finally finding his group of people that accept him in the Band of the Hawk and Griffin. Well, things don't quite work out that way for Guts, and this becomes a truly gruesome story to watch. If you haven't checked it out, I suggest you do. Next up at number 4, we have Rurouni Kenshin. This talks about Homura Kenshin, or the Bato-sai, who used to be the manslayer in Japan and now travels Japan protecting the weak and saving those from injustice. There are many amazing battles with Aoshi, Shishio, Saito, but hearing him say, Miten Hitsurugi style, Amakakaruyo no Hiromeki, is one of the most amazing things to see. Coming in at number 3, we have Trigun. This talks about Vash the Stampede, who has a $60 million bounty on his head. They call Vash the humanoid typhoon because of all the destruction he leaves, but he really has a big soft spot and he wants to take care of those that he loves. Watching Nicholas Wolfwood evolve and grow over the course of Trigun with his relationship with Miley was a beautiful thing to watch. But watching Vash's brother, Millions Knives, come in and start to try to destroy all that Vash has was something heartbreaking. Coming in at number 2, and I'll just drop that theme music below, is Yu Yu Hakusho. This talks about a young delinquent boy of Yusuke Urameshi who loses his life protecting a kid from getting hit by a car, but in the course of it becomes a spirit detective. He gains a crew of friends in Kuwabara, Kurama, and Hiei, and we get to see some of the most amazing fights in the Dark Tournament coming, and you guys have to check this out. His battle with Toguro is something to behold. Coming in at number 1 is One Piece. This talks about Monkey D. Luffy and wanting to be the king of the pirates. So from 97 until currently, One Piece has been running at over 1,000 episodes. We've watched the crew grow from the Alabasta arc all the way to Enel's Lobby and Water 7, all the way from saving Nico Robin and everyone in Marineford, watching that massive battle go on between Whitebeard and the Admirals to the whole Cake Island, and one of my favorites that'll be wrapping up is the Wano arc. This is going to be epic. If you haven't caught up on One Piece, I suggest you do. So we know Chris Farley and David Spade were an amazing duo on screen that pretty much ruled the comedy 90s. But do you know that there was a lot of tension behind the scenes, culminating in a massive fight between the two? So dealing with Chris Farley, we know there was a lot of drug use behind the scenes and a lot of hurt going on with him. Well, this came down to a situation between him and David Spade while filming Tommy Boy, where Chris Farley actually attacked David Spade, stepped on his hand, and chucked him down a flight of stairs. He's shared this a couple different times, and Adam Sandler speaks about it.
Kill him, I'm gonna punch him. And I'd say, hey, don't hit him. And he'd be like, no, I gotta hit him, Ed. See, I'm gonna crush him. And I would say, because it doesn't make any sense. If you knock him out, you're known as a jerk. And if you lose, my God, you're known as just a giant pussy.
Lay off me, I'm starving.
Luckily, my neck broke my fall.
After watching Kill Bill 1 and 2, I recognized a familiar face from some other Tarantino films. So his name is Michael Park, and he played Deputy Earl McGraw in both Grindhouse Planet Terror, From Dusk Till Dawn, and Kill Bill 1, where he played the same character in all 3 movies. So what I didn't recognize, though, is that he played a second person in Kill Bill 2. He played Esteban. This is an amazing little tidbit that I really enjoyed. I know Michael Parks from one of my favorite horror films, which you may have heard of. It's called Tusk. Tusk was an amazing film that gets even better when you find out that Michael Park suffered a stroke right before filming this weirdly perverse movie. Remember, be good, be rad, be 90s. Did you know Disney reused the same dance scene from Sleeping Beauty when filming Beauty and the Beast? Well, this wasn't to save money, but this was to save time because the crew was cutting it close on finishing the movie on time. So for any of us Bleach fans, I just finished the current episode of the 1,000-year Blood War arc, and we all have a great understanding of just how powerful Captain Yamamoto is. He's the head captain of the Gotei 13, and he leads them all. Well, the GOAT is coming into battle. So this is going to be epic because we are going to have a massive moment right now. For any of you that have read the manga, you know exactly what I'm talking about. For any of you that haven't, be prepared for something truly amazing. All I have to say is, Zanka no Tachi. So the episode is leading off on the last one. The Gotei 13, they are at their breaking point. They are just getting bodied by all the different Quincy's. We've got Overkill, we've got Quincy F, or for Fear. He's taken out Renji and Byakuya. We've got all of the Gotei 13 have had their Bankais not sealed, but stolen. And things are looking at dire straits right now, and they're looking for Ichigo to come and save their asses. Well, they got something a little bit better than that. For any of you know what I mean, Daddy's home and it's time to put the kids away, because now this is where the big boys play. I cannot tell you how excited I am to actually see this in film. Any moments with Yamamoto are amazing. He is a Soul Reaper unlike any other, so the moments we actually get to see him come out, you know that they're going to be impactful moments.
You think you can kill me that easily just by neutralizing my Ryujin Jaka? How naive! No Soul Reaper born in that entire time has been stronger than I.
Or as Barney would say, it's going to be legend, wait for it,
Dairy adjacent. Legendary adjacent.
You don't know, a yelp is a loud cry or yell. Now, Todd, I would like you to give us a demonstration of a barbaric yelp.
So growing up as a 90s kid, we love pretty much anything that Robin Williams has touched. Well, one of my favorite films that he did that's a underrated gem is him starring in A Dead Poets Society. So, A Dead Poets Society has an amazing cast starring Robin Williams, Ethan Hawke, Robert Sean Leonard. So, starring along with some of the young cast of Dead Poets Society like Ethan Hawke and Robert Sean Leonard, we also have some Hollywood greats such as Kurtwood Smith, or we might know him better as Red. We have Norman Lloyd, and we also have a highly underrated actress in Laura Flynn Boyle. DPS has so many amazing scenes in it. One of my favorite being the one asking Ethan Hawke's character to close his eyes and ask, what do you see?
Ooh, Jacques, close them. Now, describe what you see.
I close my eyes.
Yes?
And this image floats beside me.
Sweaty-toothed madman.
A sweaty-toothed madman with a stare that pounds my brain.
Oh, that's excellent. Now, give him action. Make him do something.
His hands reach out and choke me.
That's good. Wonderful, wonderful.
And all the time he's mumbling.
What's he mumbling?
Mumbling truth.
Yeah.
Truth like a blanket that always leaves your feet cold.
Forget them. Stay with the blanket. Tell me about that blanket.
You push it, stretch it, it'll never be enough. You kick at it, beat it, it'll never cover any of us. From the moment we enter crying to the moment we leave dying, it'll just cover your face as you wail and cry and scream.
Business, medicine, law, engineering, those are truly noble pursuits, and they sustain us. But poetry, beauty, romance, love, those are what we stay alive for. So some fun stuff about DPS is that Robin Williams didn't show up the first day of filming. He was really nervous about taking the role because there was just a lot of seriousness to the role. So he didn't show up the first day, and the cast actually feared that this was going to go under. Robin Williams has a point in the movie where he's talking about Marlon Brando and John Wayne. Well, that was totally improvised. About 15% of what Robin Williams was saying in the whole movie was improvised. He felt that it needed a little bit more humor to it, and the director, Jason Weir, asked Robin Williams, what would you like to teach? And so he started talking about this whole skit with John Wayne and Marlon Brando.
No, with Shakespeare can be different. France, Romans.
Which is kind of funny because Dead Poets Society is set in 1950s, and his impersonation of Marlon Brando in The Godfather was released in the 60s. One of the books that I remember reading that still sticks out in my mind today is John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men. Well, today we're going to be talking about the movie starring John Malkovich and Gary Sinise. This is a play off John Steinbeck's original novel, and in my opinion, still is as amazing as the book itself. So Of Mice and Men is a wonderful story about George and Lenny. This talks about in the Depression era America, traveling America and working on farms to make ends meet. Well, George and Lenny take care of one another almost like brothers. So, ranging from the book Of Mice and Men to the movie, there are about 15 or 16 core differences, the biggest one being the ending from both the book and the movie. Totally different. But we're going to start off with that first scene. In the first scene of Mice and Men, the movie, you see a woman running through a field in a red dress. Well, this lady is played by Moira Sinise, and this just happens to be Gary Sinise, the director and the actor for George. This is his wife. Amazing shot, and Moira Sinise just did a great job on that. So Gary Sinise said that when Of Mice and Men premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, he credited Sheryl Lynn Fenn's performance for the whole reason that Of Mice and Men got a massive standing ovation at the Cannes crowd that day. So, for any of us 90s kids that remember reading the book, do you remember what Curly's wife's name was?
Would you like to feel velvet?
You bet. I had me some too. The lady give me.
Well, if you said anything else other than she didn't have a name, you were correct. She didn't have a name in the book, but in the movie, they named her Daisy, so that way they actually had something to attach Sheryl Lynn Fenn's role to. So I'm going to be a classless bum right now, and I'm going to drop the Family Guy Of Mice and Men parody.
Tell me again about our dream, George.
All right. We're going to open a bed and breakfast in the country, and we won't be afraid to let our guests know that we are Steelers fans in this house.
What about the rabbits?
Yeah, we'll have rabbits too, but we'll also have a sign in the front that says Steelers fan parking only.
So the key differences in the movie and the book is the book opens up in the immediate time of all the events going on, so George is able to tell you the story of what's going on with him and Lenny right in the moment. In the movie, it starts in the beginning and we see George on a train by himself. And so everything that we see from George forward is a flashback, with the movie ending with George on the train riding alone.
We're gonna have a cow, some pigs. We're gonna have maybe a chicken. Down the flat, we'll have a little field. Feed the alfalfa for the rabbit. And I get to tend the rabbit.
Emotional damage!
Look at the size of the head on that boy. It's like an orange on a toothpick. So the other day I was watching Nutty Professor, and it got me thinking of what my first double role movie I watched was, and it popped in my brain. It was Mike Myers, So I Married an Axe Murderer. This movie was absolutely phenomenal. It's had to deal with Charlie just getting over a breakup and starting to date. Well, Charlie, or Mike Myers' character, meets this perfect match, a butcher down the street. The family falls in love with him and all the hijinks begin. Well, things might be going a little too well for Charlie, because he starts figuring out that this wonderful dream woman that he has might be Mrs. X, the serial killer that murders her husbands on their honeymoon and travels all around America relocating.
Find something wrong.
She's a thief. She was in the mafia. She smelled like soup.
With every girl he dates. But when Charlie meets Harriet...
Hi.
Hi. What do you look for in a woman you date?
But I'd really have to go with breast size.
He knows she's the one.
You have the face of a wee angel.
I give! I'm Charlie's father!
Except for one thing. She might be a serial killer.
She murders her husbands on their honeymoons, then changes her identity and marries again. I'm afraid that you're gonna leave me.
I'm gonna cleave you?
So I Married an Axe Murderer.
So Mike Myers did a phenomenal double role on this, and it totally set up for his future roles in Austin Powers of playing Charlie's dad. I don't know if you guys remember, but he was freaking gold.
That's a huge noggin. It's a virtual planetoid. Has its own weather system. Heed! Move!
So Myers just killing it. I always wondered, where did he pull that inspiration for Charlie's father from? Well, it turns out that just happens to be his own dad. So he just watched some home videos of his dad and brought in some of his own lines into it. So I really appreciate that, and it just kills me even to this day.
If you think I'm sexy and you want my body, all you got to do is come.
Remember, everybody, be good, be rad, be 90s. So I thought this was super interesting and just super cool all around. So we all love Kindergarten Cop. I gotta love Detective John Kimball. But did you know that for only the 30 kids in the actual kindergarten class, over 2,000 kids were auditioned for the role? They spent almost a year, almost 12 solid months auditioning kids from all around America for the 30 kids for Kindergarten Cop. Alright, so doing some research for this video, I came up on something extra. Do you know that Arnold Schwarzenegger wasn't even the third pick to play John Kimball in the movie? So it goes like this. The first call went out to Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell turned it down, just wasn't his cup of tea. This next grab would have been, I'm talking a sleeper or even a dark horse for any of us fantasy football guys. Robin Williams. I think he could have brought in something totally else to the role of Detective John Kimball. I would have dug that. The last one, this one could have been super cool. Can you imagine having Walker Texas Ranger in the role instead of Arnold Schwarzenegger? Well, yeah, originally the last call before Arnold Schwarzenegger was to Chuck Norris coming in at number 3, and he turned it down because filming Walker Texas Ranger. Well, at fourth call, they finally hit up Arnold Schwarzenegger and he took the film. Can you guys just imagine how that would have went with either one of those 3 in? Wow. Cool. So, and then here's where we get something a little extra on the back end, is one of the kids' roles was going to be filmed and filled by a A-list child celebrity. Yeah, I know who you're probably thinking of in the 90s, and no, it wasn't Macaulay Culkin. It was going to be frickin' Frodo. It was going to be Elijah Wood was recommended to play the lead role of Charlie in Kindergarten Cop, and they had to turn it down. So Elijah Woods stated later in life that this audition was one of the worst auditions that he had ever had. Given it was his young age and one of his first handful of auditions that he had ever done, and this was the first big movie that he actually got a chance to audition for. It didn't work for him, but don't feel too bad for Frodo, because he still ended up killing it in the bank account and box office later down the road, and he even got his big break in a really, really great movie some of y'all have maybe seen in the 90s. Radio Flyer? Put that bad boy right there. Other than that, you guys have an amazing afternoon, and remember, be good, be rad, be 90s.
In the new thriller Brain Scan, Edward Furlong goes over the top.
It wasn't supposed to be real!
I get to yell a lot. I like that.
One of the trippiest movies that I remember watching in the 90s was called Brain Scan. This movie had Edward Furlong after his T2 run, and it was just a trip watching this. It almost seemed like a night terror or like a dream. But I had to rewatch it the other day to make sure that this was an actual thing.
It wasn't supposed to be real!
Real, unreal, what's the difference?
I didn't kill the man. I didn't even know him.
You're in this now. You won't survive on your own. Never leave home without it.
You're in the game, man. You're in control.
You must think like a killer. Cover up any clues. Leave no witnesses, no evidence.
A challenge he can't resist.
It was so real. It was sick.
See, I told you, man. I told you it would blow your mind.